Today we're going to continue learning about the world of work. We're going to start by taking a look at some of our vocabulary words that we'll be learning in social studies today. We've got machine, factory, worker, goods, services, buyer, and seller. We'll start with machine. What is a machine? A machine is an object that does the work for people. Have you ever seen one of these? It's called a steamroller, and it's used to flatten the blacktop and make it smooth when they pave a road. The steamroller makes the job of flattening the road much easier than doing it by hand. At the grocery store, we see machines in use at the checkout stand. At the register, the item is scanned and the price comes up automatically and totals it for you as well. Maybe you've even used a scanner yourself at a self-checkout like in this picture. It's much faster than figuring it all out by hand. In our homes, we have machines as well, like vacuum cleaners and coffee makers. Machines can make our lives so much easier. Try to think about other machines that we use, and we'll talk about them later. So you know what a machine is, and let's figure out what a factory is. A factory is a place where people use machines to make items. Here we see the Hershey's chocolate factory. As we look at the pictures, we can see the people at work inside and the machines that are used to make the candy. Here's one that you might recognize. This machine is making Hershey's Kisses. There are all kinds of factories. Factories that make cars, computers, and even Legos, just to name a few. So once again, a factory is a place where people use machines to make things. Now let's move on to worker. What is a worker? A worker is a person who does a job. There are all kinds of workers. Here's a lifeguard. He's a worker. His job is to make sure the swimmers stay safe. And here's another worker. She's a scientist. She conducts research and does experiments. And here are firefighters. We know what their job is. Their job is to fight fires and prevent fires and keep people safe. Even kids have jobs. Maybe you do. Here's a kid, a little boy, whose job is to feed his cat. That's an easy job for kids. You can feed your pets at home. So we'll continue on. Now, what are goods? Goods are things that you can touch, that you use or consume. Clothing are considered goods. Bikes that you might ride, those are considered goods. Certainly food are goods. And even stuff you might get at a yard sale, those are all considered goods. So now we'll move on to services. What are services? A service is something that someone else does for you. For instance, a doctor. When you pay money to the doctor, you're not buying the doctor, you're buying his service. His service is to figure out what is making you sick, or to make sure that you're well. A car wash, that's another service. We're paying for somebody else to clean our car. And a haircut is a service. Next word is buyer. What is a buyer? A buyer is someone who pays for goods and services. And a seller. What is a seller? Well, a seller is someone who takes payment in exchange for goods and services. So it sounds like those two go together. A buyer pays for goods and services, and a seller takes payment for goods and services. So let's look at this picture. We've got a buyer and a seller in this picture. What do you suppose the man in the white striped shirt is? Is he the buyer or the seller if you look at the picture? He's the buyer. And how can we tell that? It looks like he's taking something out. And let's see, so that must mean the person in the blue vest is the seller. And we can tell that because they are behind a cash register. So those are some clues that give it away. Let's move on to the next picture. Hey, do you recognize this guy? You should. This is our president, Barack Obama. What is he doing? It looks like he's in a hamburger shop. Now, even he can be a buyer or a seller. What do you suppose he is here? Is he a buyer or a seller? Oh, he's the buyer because he's going to order something to eat and he'll end up paying money for it. So that must mean the people behind the counter, what are they? They're the seller, that's right. So we've had a chance to go over all our vocabulary words, and I hope that makes it clear for you. And if you have any more questions, we can talk about this later, and I can give you more explanations later. Okay, bye-bye.